the chosen one. Be brave, Professor. Be brave like my mother.
How do you feel?
Excellent. Really excellent.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We are covering Chapter 11, Hermione's Helping Hand. Elizabeth is back with us.
Hello, everyone.
And before we get into the chapter itself, we have a couple of shout-outs that we want to get to. We have Comfy Cozy Helen. It's a wonderful Instagram name.
I like
this
it.
Comment comes from Instagram. She says, I purposely stopped listening for a few episodes so I can binge them all at work on the weekends.
Oh, good. I hope that makes work go so much faster.
Thank you very much, Comfy Cozy Helen, for listening to this on your work day, weekend. We really appreciate all of those listens.
That's cool.
And for a Twitter comment, we go back to a frequent listener and a frequent participant on our Twitter, and we interact with her quite a bit, Jenny Conway.
Yeah.
And yes, you're quite familiar.
She's in New Zealand, guys.
Yes.
Shout out New Zealand.
So she commented on a post that Elizabeth had about just how much is in the books compared to just general media, movies. So Jenny Conway comments, they really do, and it's great hearing other people's perspectives and their way of thinking. Makes you see things you may have missed or not thought about. Love the podcast. You all are great.
Aww.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Jenny.
Jenny. We really appreciate that comment. And all of your comments on Twitter. We do see them all. Thank you very much for being supportive of our Twitter account. So if you have any comments for us and you want to have a question or something like that, just post it on Instagram or Twitter, and we will try to get to it on the podcast.
Yeah.
So even if we're a little late, because I think that Jenny Conway comment has been a while ago on Twitter, but we finally got to it. We will move on to the chapter now, and it's an interesting chapter. We get a little bit of background on how exactly the sixth year is a challenge for the students of Hogwarts, both in general, literally the sixth year of being a student at Hogwarts is difficult.
Right.
And the particular challenges that this unique year has on students, because, it's Harry Potter and you can't have an easy year. So we get a little bit of background there. We also get the Quidditch tryouts.
Which are a whole thing.
That's a whole thing, so we'll dive into that. And then we also get interactions with two professors.
Yeah.
So, to start out with the sixth year being difficult, obviously there's a pretty large gap, it seems, from year 5 to year 6.
Yeah, because, if you pass your owls, and then the assumption is that the foundation is all, I guess, there. So now that you have the foundation set in stone, you're going to be able to go way deeper. Which Harry commented, even Hermione is being like, wait, can you repeat that, please? Which they're not necessarily used to Hermione asking questions. Usually she just answers them. And they said how nonverbal spells are pretty much expected everywhere except maybe herbology. Because you can curse at the plants if you'd like to, which I just find hilarious. It's hard. It's really hard to do.
Yeah, I know Harry was particularly down on the idea of nonverbal spells in the first Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson. Mm-hmm. But now that Flitwick and McGonagall are also putting some stress on the idea of nonverbal spells, it's like, oh, I guess this is really a thing I'm going to have to do.
It wasn't just a Snape thing. Do you think they do a better job at explaining how you do it than Snape does?
So Molly and I brought up the idea of, is Snape a good teacher or not?
Yeah.
And I brought up, it seems in his first lesson, he doesn't do a great job of explaining how to execute a nonverbal spell.
I had you guys' conversation about it because it was like, okay, am I supposed to think just the words? Am I supposed to think through the theory of the spell? Am I supposed to, just muster up strength? How do I actually make the spell happen? And I think you guys you were just saying that Snape knows how to do it, so he's just do it, right?
In general, with that, but also with his potions classes, he's like, why can't you just do this as good as I can? Mm-hmm. I would think there's some subtleties within the classes themselves, because obviously Defense Against the Dark Arts is different than Charms, is different than Transfiguration. So there's probably some subtleties between the three classes where you're going to have the teachers of those classes explain it in a slightly different way.
I would hope at least one of them would be able to explain it in a way where it's like, ooh, mental breakthrough. Now I can apply it to my other subjects.
I have faith in Flitwick and McGonagall as teachers to explain the concept or idea of a thing, where Snape is just commenting on, well, not just that, but he's commenting on the importance of it and why we're doing this, not so much how we're doing this.
Yeah.
Which is, that. I mean, that's a style of teaching, and it's not necessarily wrong, I don't think, because stressing the importance of a thing is important.
Yeah, it's definitely important. You gotta make them buy into the whole concept, or else they're not gonna do any of it.
But, they do get into the fact that, Transfiguration is getting, all of this is getting much harder.
Yeah.
Like, just to get through a class is a struggle. It's like
Which
a
makes
mental
me wonder, like,
challenge.
makes me wonder how big of a jump there is between 6th year and 7th year.
I can't imagine it's that big between 6 and 7, although I take that back because 7 reintroduces the idea of exams again. And we know the jump between 4 and 5 because now exams are a thing. So now you're prepping towards the exams. So yeah, it probably does jump up again.
Yeah.
But you should be at least more prepared for it.
One would hope.
It just makes you appreciate the students that we've heard from in the past that have gotten like 9, 10, 11, 12 OWLs or the same amount of NEWTs, NEWTS, which is what they're currently going for now. It just makes you appreciate those students more because you're like, wow, they must be particularly brilliant to get through all of this.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Harry did make a comment that I do want to point out just because it made me laugh. He said how everyone trying to do their nonverbal spells look like they've overdosed on you-know-poo, which just makes me question, are Fred and George literally, yes, selling candy or pills or magic that is trying to promote constipation? Or was it just a, like, you-know-who joke? Because I always read it as, like, it's a you-know-who joke that we're just, like, in neon lights in our front store, not like this is an actual product we're advertising.
No, I think it's part of their skiving snack boxes.
Make them constipated?
Yeah, no, I think it's because I can't believe we're here. Are we really talking about this now?
Let's talk about poop.
If one has ever been, it's quite uncomfortable. And that could distract you from your studies, hence why you would be sent out of class.
I feel like
to Madame Pomfrey.
I feel like taking that and then taking
I did not expect this conversation to go here so early.
I feel like taking the remedy for that would be almost as bad as like taking the first pill. Like, have we talked before about like which snack box?
Do you give a magical laxative? Is that your...
Which snack box do you think would be the worst to take?
The puking pastules is not my favorite. I would not want to vomit, and with the potential of continuously vomiting. Fainting fancies, I'm not a fan of either. I think the one that I'd be maybe coolest with is maybe the nosebleed nougat.
Yeah.
Except that also presents its own set of problems, because if you can't stop that, then, loss of blood could be a problem.
Maybe like the fever fudge.
Oh, I wouldn't want that.
You wouldn't want the fever fudge?
No, I feel awful when I have a fever. Why would I want that feeling?
Because I feel like you could have your temperature raised fairly quickly, be like, I gotta go, feel my forehead, and then walk out into the hallway and shove the other one down easily because you're not puking, you haven't fainted, you're not like gushing blood, you're just like, ooh, I'm warm. Take it, cool down like in a minute, and then go off and do your thing. The constipation one, though, sounds awful. So
yeah, it does not sound comfortable. But yes, I believe it is a part of their skiving snack boxes.
I wonder what the process was for inventing that one.
Well, their process, while unique, seems to be quite successful. So He also mentions that his best subject seems to now be potions.
Yeah, which I have qualms about.
What are your qualms?
It's basically like you have the teacher's edition of the book with all the answers in it. Is that really your best subject then?
Oh my! Well, he's saying that because he's getting the best marks in potions now of any of his classes.
Yeah, but that shouldn't necessarily mean that's your best subject. Defense Against the Dark Arts is your best subject. It's just the teacher right now is one that you're not necessarily thriving under.
Well, it's a hard topic. So he's being asked to do something new. Mm-hmm. It's not, shield charms or whatever that he's perfected in his own time. He's now asked to do something different.
Well, that and he has the mental block because of Snape.
Correct. I mean, so that's probably inhibiting his ability to progress.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, there is that. But, you mentioned it's essentially having a teacher's edition. Is that considered cheating?
I mean, my teacher editions of textbooks I've used in the past always have there are written in prompts of questions to ask people, and then there's acceptable answers to the side underneath it. So it literally gives you answer keys for stuff a lot of times.
Reminder to those just tuning in. Elizabeth is a teacher. She's not a cheater.
I didn't buy all the teacher editions in high school, I swear. Mm-hmm. No, but yeah, they give you answers and prompts and various things like that. And I mean, not every teacher uses such things. You probably make up a lot of your own stuff or, pull from bits and places. So him having the teacher's edition is getting a cheat sheet.
I don't know that I would equate it to a teacher's edition because I equate it more to literally you're copying someone else's work. Mm-hmm. This is another 16-year-old writing in this book, mm-hmm. and you're essentially copying his homework. Okay,
so when you, at your private school that you went to,
mm-hmm.
the textbooks that you guys had, I remember distinctly, my math textbooks and sometimes my science textbooks, there would be those, sheets of math problems that we had to do, and there were sometimes people who had answers written in.
Sure.
You guys also had that?
Well, yeah, because you buy even though I went to a private school, I bought hand-me-down books. Yeah,
you guys bought them, or because the school for us, they gave us the books.
No, we had book fairs that you go and you buy an older student's books.
But you had to buy the book.
From the student. So it wasn't like buying it new. You were buying a hand-me-down book.
Okay, so because for us it was The
idea was to buy them at discounted prices.
For us it was you take the whole class down to the library or whatever, and you get your book, and that is the book that has been used by 20, 30, 40 plus students. So all their names are written in it.
I don't know if they were used by that many students, but you were getting a used book. Mm-hmm. So yeah, some were more.
So do you keep it at the end or do you sell it back?
No, you would usually flip it and sell it at probably a even more reduced rate.
Interesting.
Yeah, or the same, just sell it for the same, and then it just cycles through. But yeah, you would get books that, some books were newer, mm-hmm. and it depends on how well the kid before you took care of it, mm-hmm. or what they did with it. So yeah, some would be pristine, others would be well worn.
Well, I guess with the math idea of if there's answers written in, whenever I would see those, I'd be okay, well, one, I don't know if I can trust this answer, but two, if it is the answer and I got a different answer, sometimes that might help you with trying to figure out what you did wrong in the problem to get to the right answer. So I could see with the potions of, my potion isn't thickening quickly like it's supposed to. What did I do wrong? Maybe if there's a hint in this handwriting, the prince's handwriting.
But is that cheating?
So I don't know. There's a degree of
you're using another student's work to make yours better.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a fine line of is this a resource to help me improve and teach me something, or is it I'm just flat out copying somebody's answers and I'm not thinking about it? I feel if he takes it and applies it and uses it in multiple ways, so
it's not the information itself, it's how he chooses to use said information, not just to complete whatever potion is that day's work,
right?
But to be oh, if this is how this potion is made better, how can I apply that to
Like that
other
whole,
potions?
what was it, the pod that he juiced, right? He said like the instructions that the book gave released so much more juice. So if you were to use that in any potion that requires that juice, and it's like, okay, I've taken it, I've applied it, I've learned it. But just being like, oh, I'll do this real fast, da, 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 and then next time, how do I do this again?
What do you think Harry is doing? Which do you think Harry is doing?
A bit of both.
I think that's being kind. I don't know that he's going forward going to use those potion tidbits across multiple different potions. Now, we could get other aspects of the book that maybe this conversation changes, but...
To a degree, it reminds me of using like the AI to help you finish your homework, which I do not like. Please do not do that if you're a student out there that is not doing your homework. That is your teacher PSA. Do your homework.
Fair enough. So, like you mentioned, they are also getting into more dangerous plants and herbology, which means she's a little bit more lax on the language that is being used in herbology. If they get pricked by a thorn or they get bit by a plant, they are allowed a little bit more leniency. So even herbology is getting harder.
Yeah.
So, I think Care of Magical Creatures would be a really cool advanced class to take.
Well, especially considering the creatures we've seen in the not advanced
Right.
class.
Those should have been in the advanced class. But anyway.
Yeah.
We do note that Hagrid is being rather cold towards the trio. Not really returning waves or glances. He's not really showing up at breakfast as much anymore, at the meals.
Which does make me question, I know that it's been a full week since the last chapter, and they seem to imply that they've been in school for 2-3 weeks so far. I don't understand, knowing how they know Hagrid, how they haven't taken 5 minutes to walk down to him and have a conversation. Like, I know their schedule's busy, I get it, but things haven't really gotten into full swing yet. So now is probably actually the time that they have the most time to go talk to their friend.
Well, I think they've mentioned they've tried getting his attention, and he's blown them off.
Yeah,
he
but
has blown them off.
So if he keeps doing that, he doesn't come to meals. Those are like, okay, he's angry. I need to go seek him out.
But you don't want to be like, oh, he didn't wave back, I'm showing up at his door. you want to like give him a little time to maybe cool off or whatever. You don't want to like stalk the guy. So they gave him.
Still, I mean, they know Hagrid. They know he's always like cheerful whenever he sees them when they haven't annoyed him. Like, if he doesn't respond or he pretends to not see
give
them,
him a little time to maybe cool off. I mean, he's
3
hurt.
weeks?
He's genuinely hurt. So it's like, okay, he's maybe a little bit more upset than we thought he was going to be. All right, he's blowing us off.
I don't know.
He hasn't gotten over
If someone
it yet.
has to cool off for that long, then they're not. They've cooled off and they're holding a grudge. Like, go talk to him sooner.
I think this was a decent amount of time. With your schedules, with his schedules, you tried to interact in the hallways and such. I think it was a good in-between time. And this is fine. Now it's the time to maybe go actually seek him out. But anyway. There are some other changes that they note. One, Hermione states that Harry seems to be more fanciable now in year 6 than he was in year 5.
I love how he's totally clueless as to why that might be.
Yeah. And it's like, Harry, everybody knows you're right now.
Right.
And furthermore, not only are you right, but you have legitimately fought him and survived twice.
You were called a liar, but you stayed truthful and loyal. You are brave. You're a fighter. Also, you're a little taller and you got a little more mature. Like,
You are the Quidditch captain, too, now.
yeah, like you have all these things going for you.
A lot of things
sir.
going right for him.
Yeah.
Ron, however, feebly tries to prop himself up, too. Like,
I'm tall.
I've been tall. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I love whenever Hermione explains the female mind to these boys because it just always makes me laugh.
I still think they should be a little bit more with it. And I had that conversation with Molly, too.
Especially because they've been friends with a girl for their entire school
Well, they just
career.
went
Mine
through
is
the
like
whole-
the first 2 months.
They went through the whole Yule Ball experience.
Yeah.
Like, you should like I said with Molly, it's like, when a girl is pretty. Like, you know. You know if they're, like, Ron is noticing Lavender smiling at him, laughing at his jokes. Like, they should be more with it.
I get being like, wait, is this really happening to me? Is this like, is that what I think it means? Like, I understand the second guessing of that, but I mean, Harry's just like, why is everyone signing up for Quidditch? There haven't been this many people signing up for Quidditch before. That's so weird. And Hermione's like, 'cause it's you. Yeah. That's why.
We also find some news in the Prophet. We find out that Stan Shunpike, if you remember him, he was working the night bus all the way back in Prisoner of Azkaban. He was arrested on suspicion of being a Death Eater after he was overheard in a pub discussing secret Death Eater plans. And I know some of my guests on this podcast have not been overly kind of the Death Eaters, about the Death Eaters and how intelligent they may be or how proficient they might be. And that's fair, I suppose. Not really. I disagree with that completely. But I don't think, at least the Death Eaters that we've witnessed, would be openly discussing their evil deeds generally in a pub.
No, not really. You get yourself a quick grave if you do such things with Voldemort. Yeah.
So, the trio assumes that it was probably just Stan being a little bit more on the...
Stan being Stan.
Stan being Stan, boasting about stuff that he really doesn't know much about.
Yeah.
And it gets him in trouble. So we also learn that some students with the current climate are thinking about withdrawing from Hogwarts. The Patil twins were rumored to be possibly pulled from Hogwarts by their parents, which is interesting to find out about. And then we also learned that Eloise Midgen, the one with all of the bad acne that she tried to curse off her face, has already been withdrawn from the school, which is quite a bold tactic, I feel like.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me a little bit of COVID, when parents were pulling their kids from schools and deciding to just like homeschool instead. Just thinking like, this is the safer route for my child, so we'll do it.
Well, I mean, maybe some of this news happens because this throwaway line that I firmly believe should not be such a throwaway line. But they mentioned that the day before, Hannah Abbott was actually pulled from class to be told that her mother was found dead.
Can you imagine?
That's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad they pulled her from school, because I don't know how you're supposed to go back to school the next day after learning that. That's horrible.
Yeah, I can't imagine. That has to, like, run through the school immediately, right?
You would think so, but I don't know.
Obviously, we got Gryffindor's talking about a Hufflepuff.
Yeah, of someone of their year, yeah. I mean, I wonder if it was they were in class together and it happened, or maybe if the Ravenclaws were in class with the Hufflepuffs, they all went and were like, oh, this is just what happened. Or did they read it in the news? Because, I mean, Ron said, anyone we know dead when Hermione picked up the newspaper. It seems like they're constantly checking it, which is so sad to think about, really. Like the fact that you're so used to checking it that you say it in that, like, well, I expect to hear it kind of tone.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the atmosphere that we referenced at the beginning of this episode of, like, 6 years a lot more difficult. Mm-hmm. This particular one has some nuance to it with all of the climate in the wizarding world going on.
It's hard to focus on your studies when there's a war.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't imagine if you're a parent with your child away at a boarding school, essentially, or your child away at a boarding school wondering, are my parents okay? Are my siblings okay? Like, what's going on at home?
No, it makes sense that people are withdrawing their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I mention one other thing that is, in my eyes, a little bit of a throwaway line, but also super sad? So, like, Harry made a comment about how he hadn't received any mail since the start of the term. And he said, like, well, my only regular correspondent's dead. And he said he hoped that Lupin might write occasionally, but so far he had been disappointed. And I'm a little disappointed in Harry with this because, like, I mean, one, it's incredibly sad with how bluntly he worded this of, like, oh, the only person who ever wrote to me, he's now dead. But two, like, he knew Lupin all throughout his third year. He knew of him of his fourth year and his fifth year. I don't think he ever wrote to Lupin during his fourth or fifth year. At least not that was really, specified to us as readers. And it's like, friendship is a two-way street. Just because your godfather's dead doesn't mean that now Lupin would suddenly start writing you out of nowhere. I mean, you might think that's weird, or he might think that you might not want that. Like, you have to reach out to him in order to get back what you're hoping for.
I agree that communication is a two-way street. If he wants to communicate with Lupin, which I can think of about 1.5 million reasons why he would want to communicate with Lupin, then, yeah, reach out. If you have a question or you need some reassurance or some advice.
Or just, tell me a story about James.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
It could just be like, hey, how are things?
Or guess what this idiot Defense Against Dark Arts teacher is dealing with us. You are so much better than him.
Sure.
I'm sure Lupin would love hearing that about Snape.
All of the above. All of the above. And many, many more. Yeah, there's a ton that you can put in a letter and initiate that line of communication.
Yeah, just
for sure.
do it.
For sure.
He did get mail, though. He got a new potions book, which he scandalized Hermione because he switched the covers so he can keep the Prince book and Slughorn gets a brand new copy.
I think this is... I don't know. I know Harry is a very... This sounds like so stupid to even say, but a very comparable wizard. Like, he's good, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I feel like this is such a subtle thing where he's just like, oh, boom, 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 covers switched, no one will know the wiser. I'm like, that's a little bit of, like, subtle good magic.
Yeah, I think it's fun.
You know what I mean?
I think it's really smart.
Like, honestly, take a step back and think of where Harry started this whole journey on, not even knowing any of this was real. Mm-hmm.
And now it's like second nature.
And now
to
it's
do that.
so second nature to just be like, oh, I'm just going to switch these book covers like they've always been this way.
Like a control C, like copy paste or whatever. Yeah. Like, you just know how to do it.
And now he's just like, boom. I think we take a little bit of that for granted because of all of the big, magnanimous, like, booming things that he's done. Mm-hmm. But that he's somewhat trained for usually. Mm-hmm. This is just such a subtle, like, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, second nature stuff.
Yeah. It was kind of a nice thing to see.
Yeah.
Like, it was so easy for him to do it. It was great. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he's learning that being the Quidditch captain is not so easy to do. These Quidditch tryouts.
There's something.
There's something. There's a lot to them. So let's have a little rundown here. We get half of Gryffindors to actually show up for this thing, which is overwhelming enough. Mm-hmm. You get Cormac McLagan walking up to you. Who's enough in his own right. He's a lot. He's a load. And he reintroduces himself. He says that he missed last year's tryout because he ate a pound of doxy eggs on a bet. Okay, so my first impression of this man is, like, you have a very large stature. So I'm kind of picturing, like, your height-ish. Super large ego. You don't have that. And then just, like, super small brain / impulse control. Like, I feel like that's a little unfair. He ate a pound of doxy eggs. Why would you do that? That's not necessarily. He's a competitive person. No, there's a line between being competitive and being stupid. Like, I don't think he's. I want to know how big this bet was that he ate a whole pound of them. That's dumb. Don't be dumb. People bet on some real stupid stuff, Elizabeth. And they're generally smart people, but because they know odds and they know all that kind of stuff. But I don't know that generally equates to small-brained. I think you're putting a jock mentality on this guy, which is unfair, I think. Maybe it's just because I'm not as
nearly as competitive as you are, but I just think it's
He's a
dumb.
member of the Slug Club, Elizabeth. You can't be just some random idiot.
Do you think Slughorn would be impressed by that?
No, probably not. But
Claim to fame.
to be fair to Cormac here, I don't think he's challenging the future Minister of Magic to a doxy egg eating contest.
No, because he would be like, that's dumb, I'm not going to do it.
No, well, I think he's communicating and presenting himself in a much more appropriate fashion, which indicates that he's not necessarily small-brained.
I also want to know how long he was in the hospital wing for this. Madame Pomfrey was probably like, you stupid
I'm
kids.
sure she had some choice words. But I just think, let's lay off Cormac for now. Here's the breakdown of all of the students that Harry has here. He breaks them up into groups and just has them fly around the pitch, which is a great idea because he weeds out a lot of people that really shouldn't be there in the first place.
Yeah.
So he weeds out a lot of first-year students that honestly don't even know how to fly yet. So there's that. Or they don't even have brooms to begin with. There's a group of giggling girls. And I put in my notes, lots of giggling girls that giggled gigglingly.
I did giggle when I read that.
Thank you. That's what I envisioned, that sound that you're hearing now. So
I like how they barely even cared when they got eliminated too. They're just like, okay, whatever, and then they went and giggled in the stands.
Yep.
100% would have been me.
We get group 3, which seems halfway competent until they end up in a massive pile-up halfway around the pitch.
Which I don't understand. How do you pile up on something when you can go 360 degrees?
Because you're all probably following in a fairly linear pathway, and then one person diverts from that linear pathway or stops suddenly, and then you just got to pile up.
I guess so.
So there's that. And group 4 ended up having no broomsticks, or very few with broomsticks. I feel like you should probably account for that if you're going for a Quidditch tryout.
Yeah.
Group 5 actually did not have Gryffindors in it. It had some Hufflepuffs, and there were also a couple of Ravenclaws in Group 5.
Group 5 is my favorite.
Well, so what you're saying is, not only would you have been one of the giggling girls that giggled gigglingly, you would have been a Ravenclaw girl that giggled gigglingly.
100%. Just the fact that they like, what was your thought process here? You just want to anger Harry, which, to be fair, is probably very entertaining, so probably made them giggle
Think
more.
about it. You can talk to your grandkids at some point saying, I tried out one day for the great Harry Potter. And then your grandkid would be like, but Dad, he was a Gryffindor. You were a Ravenclaw. How did that work out? Don't worry about details, son.
I got resorted for one day.
Yeah.
It sounds like this was an ordeal, though. I mean, he talks about, like, there was broken teeth, there was a lot of complaints, a lot of tantrums, and it took 2 hours just to get all the chasers and all the beaters.
Yeah, so that roster that he settled on after all of the chaos was Katie Bell, which is a familiar face. Yep, familiar face at the chaser position.
He said she was excellent in her tryout.
Well, stunning.
Yeah.
She's only been on the team for 6 years. You get a newcomer, Demelza Robbins. She is also a chaser, and she was particularly good at dodging bludgers. So that's her little claim to fame on this team. And then you get Ginny Weasley as the third chaser, which shocks no one, considering her successes on the team last year.
Yeah, they said she outflew everybody and she scored 17 goals, so that's impressive.
He also discovered 2 new beaters. We have Jimmy Peaks.
They say he hit Harry in the head with a bludger and it raised an egg-sized lump, which
Yes.
I would think go to the hospital. Shouldn't you?
You would think he would be concussed after that, yes.
Yeah, if you were his athletic trainer, what would you do?
Put some ice on that. And check him for a concussion. And then we also get Richie Coote as the other beater. Peaks and Coote are the 2 beaters.
I said he was weedy, but he aimed well, which
Yeah.
is what you want, I suppose, for a beater.
So that's the general team. Obviously, Harry's the seeker. So then we get down to the keeper tryouts. And most of those trying out for keeper didn't really save more than 2 out of 5 shots. Presumably, you had the 3 chasers taking rounds of scoring goals. So then we get Cormac McLagan. And he saves 4 out of 5. And even Harry's like, that was a pretty good tryout. Like, it was pretty good. 4 out of 5 is pretty good.
I feel like by the 4th one, he was, oh no, oh gosh.
Am I going to have to
nervous.
deal with this guy?
I'm nervous, yep.
But on the 5th one, he shot off oddly in the wrong direction, which confused Harry a little bit. He's like, wow, he didn't seem like he would do that, and then he just did that.
Seemed to confuse McLagan, too.
Yeah, seems odd.
Yeah.
Ron, however, steps up.
Which is good, because he looked very nervous. Mostly because the crowd is, like...
The crowd is growing.
Very full, yeah.
And now you're getting, people coming down from after breakfast, so you're getting everybody that tried out who didn't make it staying. Mm-hmm. You have the general crowd that was there anyway watching.
And we know they're not all Gryffindors.
And now you have the rest of the school coming down, checking it out.
Yeah.
And he ends up saving 5 of 5 to win the job, which McLagan was like, hey, his sister took it easy on him. And Harry comes back with, what are you talking about? She had the one that was the hardest for him to save. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Good job, Ron. Weasley is our king.
Ron walks off the pitch and he's like, Cormac looked a little weird when he missed that last save. He looked almost like he was confounded. And Hermione was like, ooh.
She blushed.
Oh, boy. Which Harry caught.
Yeah, Harry did catch it. He didn't comment, but he was like, oh, I see that.
Yeah, Hermione ends up admitting to it after a visit to a certain professor, who we'll get to next. But yeah, she admits to confunding McLagan, and...
I mean, she said, she was basically like, Harry, I did you a favor. You should have heard the way he was talking about Ginny and Ron. Sure. And he's got such an ego. It'd be amazing if he could even get off the ground.
And Harry knows she's right, but does like to kind of twist a needle into her a little bit about
she's a prefect.
Yeah, you're a prefect. Shouldn't you be all about the rules and following the rules? This is odd for you, right. Whatever. And here's my thing. Shouldn't Cormac know that something devious happened?
See, maybe, I don't know.
Or is that part of the Confundus spell?
I'm very curious about the spell, because we do see after their visit, which we'll get to in a second, but like he can't even walk into the Great Hall, because the first time he kind of like bounces off the frame of the door and is like, whoa, what's going on? And it makes me wonder, like, how long does it last, first of all? Like, are there multiple strengths to the spell, or does it just depend on the person who casts the spell? But then also, if he was confounded, like, right before his tryouts, how did he save 4 out of 5?
No, I think, and this might be the movie skewing me a bit.
How'd the movie do it?
The movie was literally he saves 4 out of 4. And then Hermione hits him with the spell right before the 5th.
Okay, because the detail it gives was that when Cormac went up to Harry at first with the doxy eggs, and he's like, oh yeah, we're the Slug Club, and Harry's like, okay, well, go sit over there. It says he went and sat near Hermione. So my impression was like, Hermione listened to him going on and on about how great he is and how much the Weasleys suck, and she just got irritated and hit him with the spell, like, right as he was walking up to the pitch, in which case, like, does it have a delayed reaction?
Well, maybe she put...
Delay?
Yeah, well, not a delay, but she put a stipulation on the spell, and I don't know how this works, but if she put a stipulation on the spell being like, screw up the 5th one, which is giving a lot of credit to Ron to save 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
But maybe?
I don't know.
Because
I would feel like if she shot a spell at him, 1, she'd probably be too far away, and 2, if she did shoot a spell at him, surely someone would notice, like, a spell flying over.
Well, I mean, they did. He shot off oddly in the wrong direction.
Yeah, but I mean, like, don't most of the spells seem to have, like, light that comes from it?
Not necessarily. Like, you don't see like wisps of smoke levitating things. Like,
true.
You know.
I just think like sometimes we do see light with it, so I would imagine almost like a firework, you would see light shoot towards McCormick and then be like,
Well,
whoa,
I
that's
think
weird.
the action of the spell was him shooting off oddly in the direction.
Maybe.
That was the action of the spell.
It does seem to last quite a while, though.
It does seem to last. I will give you that. It does seem to last quite a while, which also makes me think it was the fifth one that she used the spell. She was like, oh no, he might actually win this.
Gotta do this.
Yeah.
I can see that.
But anyway, they visit Hagrid. Hagrid is the first professor they go to visit. And the one thing I think I like most about this scene is not actually with Hagrid. I like, as they walk up to Hagrid's cabin, they spot Buckbeak.
I really like it, too.
And, Hermione is like, I know Buckbeak is good, but it's still an intimidating creature. Like, it's still...
She calls him scary. Okay, we kind of disagree about this
We do.
interpretation. So you explain your version first.
Okay, so she says it's scary. And I think she's being 100% genuine there. I think it's an intimidating creature because it's a large creature that can do a lot of significant damage if it's... You have to bow to this thing to even get near it. And if you don't, and you are disrespectful towards it, it will attack, and it does have talons and a beak with which to do so. So it's an intimidating, and she doesn't have a lot of time spent with it, really. She has the classes, and we don't get accounts of her visiting it in Grimmauld Place when it's up in the extra bedroom that Sirius had Buckbeak in.
Right.
So I don't think she ever really, and again, there's a reason why she's not taking this class. This is not a class for her.
Well, it's not like book knowledge to memorize.
Well, right. And she's not exactly the type to get her hands dirty a whole lot. So it doesn't seem like her forte.
Okay. So my differing opinion is that Hermione was actually flirting a little bit with this tactic.
I didn't see that at all.
So to explain... So we know she's been watching Lavender flirt a little bit. Like Lavender was wishing Ron good luck when he went to the Quidditch tryouts, and Hermione scowled at that. And she's already witnessed Lavender be like, oh, hey, Ron. And I mean, they roomed together, so I imagine she might have overheard a thing or two. And when Ron got his fifth save, Hermione came over and she was full of praise, and Lavender looked a little grumpy afterwards. So I think this is her, especially after Ron said, McLaggen looks confounded and she blushed. I think this is her being a little bit I'm feeding into the ego of the boys a little bit, specifically Ron being like, oh, he's so scary, and I wish I had some strong, great man like Ron to just take care of me around this scary beast.
I
get that a little bit.
I don't see that at all.
I don't think it's a good tactic. I think this is Hermione not knowing how to flirt and then being like, I'll try this one.
This would be a pretty poor attempt, but I don't see it at all in that way. I think she's literally just coming up on this creature that, again, she doesn't have a lot of experience with, going, oh wow, that thing is a large killing machine.
It just so strikes me as it doesn't seem as the type of comment Hermione would usually make. And even Ron's like, oh, come off it, you've flown on him before. You're still scared of him?
She didn't love that experience. She was not a fan of that experience.
I know, but I think it's one of those, the horrible ways sometimes smart girls try to dumb themselves down in order to seem more appealing to somebody, specifically, more of a jockey kind of guy. And Ron was just acting like an athlete, being an athlete. So I think
she's met Grop. I can't imagine she's super comfortable around Grop. She's met Fluffy. I don't think she'd be super happy about Fluffy.
But you're also kind of proving my point. Those are all way larger and more intimidating. And She
went through an entire history of hippogriff attacks on humans to try to get Buckbeak out of prison.
Yeah, but to defend Buckbeak, Buckbeak has bowed to her before. She's not like Malfoy. He's going to be like, oh, Buckbeak, you're so ugly.
No, she's not an idiot. But it is. If you haven't seen Buckbeak in a minute, and then you come up on this thing and you're like, oh wow, that's a large, dangerous creature that I have to be very careful of.
I still think she's trying to dumb herself down.
No, I don't see it that way.
You guys tell us your thoughts.
Let us know what you guys think.
Is she flirting?
But anyway, the thing that I really liked about this, not Hermione, was Harry coming up to Buckbeak, because he's the first one to come up to Buckbeak and do the whole bow greeting. And as he goes up to pet Buckbeak, he just kind of whispers under his breath. So I'm believing that really only him and Buckbeak can hear that.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you must be missing.
You miss him,
Sirius.
don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, you spend more time with Sirius than I ever did.
Yeah.
Like, you must be missing him as well."
That was really cute.
It was a cute moment. Yeah. It was a nice emotional punch.
Broken immediately by Hagrid being like, "Oh, get away from there."
Well, which is fair too, because he didn't see the kids come up, so he just sees a couple of kids by the large, dangerous creature.
The one that got him in trouble, like for a whole year.
Which is a whole other thing. Why do you have Buckbeak, like, right outside your cabin? You should probably have Buckbeak, like, on the edge of the forest or something. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, so, and then Hagrid's like, "Oh, it's you three," and then goes into his cabin.
Slams the door. They're all so dramatic.
I get where Hagrid's coming from here.
I do too, but it's also kind of funny.
And he's like, "Oh, it's you three, fine." And then he goes in and shuts him out, and then Harry, like, he's banging on the door.
He says he's going to break down the door.
Threatens to break down the door, which Hagrid then opens and goes, "I'm a professor. You can't break down a professor's door."
Potter. He calls him Potter.
Yeah. I
love it. And then Harry's like, "Okay, sir. Apologies, sir." He's like, "When have you ever called me sir?" Like, "Well, when have you ever called me Potter?" Like, oh, touche.
How often does Harry use the term sir?
I love it, 'cause I heard
in a
that.
respectful way? Not often. Very few times. Dumbledore, probably the most often. Of just like, "Yes, sir." Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Yes, professor. Anyway. We do get, after they've calmed things down.
Yeah, Hermione's excuse was like, "We could not fit it in our schedules. Apologies. We couldn't." Hermione couldn't. Maybe the other two could have, but...
The other two certainly could have. But anyway. They calm things down, and then Hagrid gets quite emotional. And he delivers the news that Aragog, the large acromantula, giant spider from Chamber of Secrets, is not doing too well and might actually be dying. To which I'm sure the trio, all in their heads at the same time,
"Oh no, he's dying."
"Oh man, that's so bad.
Sad. Sorry."
But Hagrid has had a long time of being friends. Keep in mind, this is not just a normal spider. An acromantula is an actual spider with a sentience to it.
Yeah.
It can actually speak. It has verbalization.
And it recognizes a kindness that Hagrid showed him that most people don't even show regular spiders.
Right.
Yeah.
So they do have an actual bond? Mm-hmm. Friendship? So Hagrid is quite distraught over this.
Yeah, and I mean, Hermione was like, "Oh, is there any way for us to help?" But I love Ron in the background being like, no, don't offer help. But to his credit, Hagrid was like, "Actually, that's really nice of you, but I don't think it would be safe for you guys because the other spiders in the colony seem to be acting up a little bit. So if you were to try to come help, I can't guarantee your safety."
Well, also, Aragog himself, not a huge fan of anybody other than Hagrid.
Which Hagrid doesn't... I mean, maybe they told him when he got back from Azkaban, but Hagrid seems to think like, "Well, he's fine with me, so he must be fine with everybody."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just say you're with me. You're cool.
Yeah.
No.
It doesn't work that way.
No one is cool other than you. I don't think the forest is a very safe place in general. I mean, generally it's not. But particularly at this time, the centaurs are still riled up, presumably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, imagine if they were to try to walk back into the forest a second time. Be like, "We just kicked you out of here."
The centaurs are still riled up. Now the acromantula spiders in their segment of the forest are starting to become less and less content.
Right.
plus whatever other creatures are in there. So it's... if I were a student, I would not venture in. I just wouldn't. I would heed the words of Dumbledore and Filch and not go into the Forbidden Forest.
I wonder what the unicorns think of the Forbidden Forest drama.
Oh, they're probably above it all. They're probably a whole like Catch Me If You Can. But and the Thestrals are probably like, can't see me.
Yep.
Or maybe they can, because those creatures probably see death often, I would imagine, in the forest.
Yeah.
But anyway. So yeah, Hagrid ends up beginning this interaction on an incredibly angry note, and ends up leaving this conversation in a fairly cheerful note.
Yeah. I mean, I think he did. There was the anger of he didn't take my class, but I think there's also been this emotion just weighing over him, and the two just combined in a nasty way. So being able to emotionally process it with your friends helped.
Yeah. The other professor that Harry interacts with in this chapter is, stunningly, Slughorn. And Slughorn ambushes Harry as he's coming back into the castle for the feast, and tells him that there's another Slug Club supper coming.
He wanted to do it tonight. Like, oh, let's have dinner tonight. Don't go into the Great Hall yet.
Yeah, and he says that Cormac is coming, Zabini is coming, a new member of the Slug Club, Melinda Bobbin, is coming, and she's special because her family owns a large chain of apothecaries. New opportunity for connections.
He's quick with making these connections.
He's very quick.
Like, jeez.
And obviously he's
I'm
inviting...
lucky if I know the kids' names by this point in the school
I
year.
still don't know kids' names. So Harry is also obviously invited, and Slughorn takes this opportunity to be like, you know what? Hermione, I would like you to come to this supper.
Yep.
And then just completely 100% ignores Ron.
Like, I can't with that.
Like he's not even there.
Yeah. If I just picture like my students coming in and talking to me, I'm not going to ignore one of them. That'd be so uncomfortable.
That's why I'm saying, like, Slughorn's an interesting dude, because
he gives people chances when they're not necessarily like this famous figure, but at the same time, it's like there's ones who could potentially show their worth or have done things, and he's just like, whatever.
I think overall he's better than Snape, but at the same time, he's not unlike Snape either, because he is quite cold to those he doesn't deem worthy of his attention.
Yeah.
It's a true meritocracy with him, which is better than just a complete biased approach. But
it is surprising because it's like he seems to be all fond of people who are related to each other. He's already collected Ginny, and the idea of...
He didn't mention Ginny here, though, which is kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, two came to the one.
Yeah,
Slug Club meeting. But that and the fact that he was with... like Harry and Hermione at the Ministry, that's fairly common knowledge.
Well, so here's the thing. My question that I'll pose to you is, shouldn't Ron be invited to these? And here's my full reasoning. You just mentioned a couple. Obviously, his sister is already somewhat in, if we can't...
And his brothers have a whole shop.
Fred and George have a successful shop in Diagon Alley.
Percy's in the Ministry.
Charlie works with dragons in Eastern Europe. Bill's at Gringotts. Percy's in the Ministry of Magic. His father works at the Ministry of Magic. And him, Ron,
being Harry's best friend.
Well, Ron was at the Ministry of Magic fighting Death Eaters and Voldy.
Right. And if you want to talk like connections in general, you're best friends with Harry Potter.
You can make a strong case that Ron deserves to be in here based on Slughorn's own criteria.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
The only thing I could see would be him being like, you're similar to like Peter Pettigrew, of you've surrounded yourself by powerful friends and you are just,
family though,
and you're just like skating by with it. But yeah, I agree with you that he absolutely should.
The thing is, if how does Slughorn pick his favorites? Because if he picks his favorites based on connections, Ron needs to be in here.
Yeah.
His family and friends and his own accomplishment of being there at the Ministry of Magic fighting Death Eaters should be there. If you're going purely on merit, obviously he's had him in class now for a little bit, and Slughorn does have a talent for eyeing, like, he's special, he's not. She's good, she's not. She's smart, he's not. That kind of thing. And maybe Slughorn's just made the assessment, like, Hermione, solid. Harry, great. I don't even know your name. Like, you haven't done anything to actually catch my attention, unlike his sister, who did something to catch his attention.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just what he's basing this on.
You gotta witness something in order to stand out, I guess.
I think you can make a strong argument for legitimately, not like us being, pro Ron or biased towards Ron. I think you can make a real strong argument that Ron should be included in these.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the real answer is that we gotta make Ron jealous and keep him separate so we can establish all the things that J.K. Rowling wants to do with the plot.
You need an inter-trio drama dynamic.
Because what's a school year without it?
Of course. Speaking of Arthur and the Ministry, Harry learns, acted on his tip about Malfoy and actually executed a raid on the Malfoy mansion. Unfortunately, it didn't actually yield any productive dark magic items of any sort. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a bummer.
Hermione said, Harry, of course, is first like, well, obviously Malfoy probably brought it to Hogwarts, and that's why he wasn't at the house for Arthur to see. And Hermione's like, we were searched when we got here. Like, Crabbe literally had a shrunken head confiscated, which I love that detail.
That caught Harry off guard. He was like, oh, wait, you guys were?
Yeah, because he wasn't, because he was late. So, something would have gotten taken off of Malfoy if he had a thing.
Unfortunately, Slughorn's influence only goes so far because, unfortunately, Harry could not avoid Snape's detention for a second time. He has to go to detention tonight, as much as Slughorn tried to weasel his way.
My question. So his detention was sorting rotten flobberworms from good ones, and he was told don't bring any gloves. Haha. Why have a potions-related detention? He's not potions master anymore.
I assume it's still something he is in charge of. I don't know. I have no idea.
Because, you think about other detentions.
It's still a detention that it needs to be done, so...
that, and I just suppose, he knows Harry won't enjoy it because he's going to get his hands dirty. So I get that. But when we just think about all the detentions Harry has ever had, it always seems to be in the office of the professor or the Forbidden Forest.
To be fair, he hasn't had many detentions with Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers, and I don't believe Snape is signing a bunch of autographs. So this is more Snape's alley.
I guess. It struck me as a little odd.
I didn't. The thing that struck me as being odd was sorting out rotten flobberworms and specifically don't bring protective equipment. Okay. All right. But anyway.
Sucks to suck, you got detention.
We'll wrap it up here for the non-spoiler of Chapter 11, Hermione's Helping Hand. And we'll be right back with the spoiler section. Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
Where is he? Where's my 1-1?
All right, so we are back with the spoiler section, and I just wanted to kick it off with, we kind of hinted towards it a little bit in the non-spoiler, about Hermione. Mm-hmm. she's not a fan of the whole Lavender Ron flirtation game going on.
What gave you that vibe?
Yeah, she's a little against it, and obviously we heard in her breakdown of what amortentia is, she stops short of listing all of the things that she smells. Mm-hmm. All of these hints are steering you in the direction of, we think Hermione might have a thing for Ron.
Just a little bit of a crush.
And she recognizes it.
Yeah.
Unlike Harry with Ginny, which we can get into again. But,
Hermione's not an idiot. She recognizes her own emotions. She's good like that.
Do you think she recognized it, and I asked Molly this, do you think she recognized it as she was listing out the amortentia things, or did she already know ahead of time?
That's a good question.
Or did she realize it for the first time there? Of like, okay, it's this, it's the... Oh.
I mean, if she noticed it while smelling it and put two and two together in that moment, good on her for being able to think that quickly and not, like, say it right then and there, because that would have been embarrassing for her. But I don't know. I think maybe they were starting to grow, and then, yeah, maybe the smell set her off. I personally hate this part of the book so much.
Why?
The love triangle stuff is just so annoying to me. Like, I know a lot of people, I know you get annoyed with the whole, like, Harry and Malfoy, like, stalker fest going on, but the whole, just the way Ron is with Lavender, like, the way he, like, makes out with her right in front of Hermione, and
Ron's just oblivious, though.
He's just so, like, he knows sometimes the actions that he's doing is purposely hurting Hermione, and he's not even considering Lavender's emotions by being like, oh, I'll just get with her and try to poke at Hermione until Hermione finally admits to me that she likes me. Well, I'm also still crushing on Hermione.
Oh, I don't... I think that's a very sinister view of Ron.
I don't think he's...
I disagree with that.
I don't think he's doing it, like, purposely being like, I want to hurt Lavender. I think, though, he has a crush on Hermione, and choosing to be with Lavender while that's going on, and being like, well, I know I'm hurting Hermione, but... she had all this time that she could have talked to me. She didn't.
I think that's a very sinister view. I think Ron is just finally getting attention. And he's diving into that. You know, you're around high school kids all the time. Mm-hmm. What Ron and Lavender have as a relationship is not dissimilar to how a lot of 15, 16...
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
When they're into each other, they are... very into each other, and it's because of
until
attention.
They're not.
Yes, but that's attention, and Ron never gets attention. We just talked about it with Slughorn. He never gets attention. He never gets looked at fondly because he's sitting with the smartest person in their class and the most famous person in potentially the world.
Okay, that all said, I still think though that there's manipulation in multiple ways, not necessarily actively. I think Lavender sees the attention that Ron and Harry got after, like, the whole Ministry Magic thing. She knows she can't get with Harry, so she's like, maybe I could get with Ron, and then I could, like, boost my status. And Ron is being like, well, I really actually like Hermione, and I can't get with her yet, so Lavender's smiling at me. Well, okay, I guess I can kiss her for a few moments until Hermione gets angry enough that she says something, and then I could be with her.
Okay,
and Hermione is just like, I'm too proud to admit that I have a crush on you, but I'm not pleased about any time Lavender gives you the googly eyes.
Isn't that a little bit on Hermione?
She should say something. She's had a crush on him. And she hasn't because...
So Ron is a free agent,
right, I'm not arguing with you with that. Like,
You're telling me... No, your whole premise to this was Ron is spiting Hermione.
He does, though.
Hermione had every chance to be like, hey, I like you. Which he
says, but he also recognizes that she has a crush on him and is like, well, I'll continue to kiss Lavender.
Oh, I think you're spinning this too much on Ron. Because what is Ron supposed to do here? Ron is with a girl who does not acknowledge she likes him at all.
Right.
And there's some snide remarks that Hermione throws to Ron's general area. Uh-huh. So, I'm sorry, you're getting that from Hermione. This girl over here is actually showing that she has interest in you.
Yeah, but he doesn't have as deep as interest in her the way he does in Hermione.
No, but he likes the attention.
He likes the attention.
So,
sure.
I'm sorry, you're getting nothing from one side and you're getting everything from the other. Are you really holding it against Ron?
But here's the thing, because
to go where he has...
the attention that he's getting from Lavender, he's also getting attention from Hermione.
Is he? I don't think he is.
I think he is.
In what way? And here's the thing. Like, we've talked about differences between girls and guys and their flirtation techniques.
Yeah.
This is when it backfires. Because one girl has made her intentions very clear.
Right.
And one has not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, do you blame Ron for being like, I'm going to go with the girl that's like all about me?
Right.
And I get Hermione might be all about him, but she hasn't given any indication that she actually is. So what do you want the guy to do?
Okay.
You can't blame him for this.
The difference here of what I see is like, so we know Ginny has a crush on Harry. And similar to the way Ron has a crush on Hermione. And Harry has given zero implication all these years of any interest in her. So she's like, okay, I'll go date other people. Everything's fine. She might still have like that little crush on Harry.
She likes Harry.
She still likes him. But she's also recognizing like, it's not happening. So I'm going to try my thing. So the difference that I think is that Ron, to a degree, recognizes that Hermione has a crush on him the way he has a crush on her. But because she hasn't done anything, then I'm going to go with Lavender, who will willingly kiss me because I have to keep up with Harry and my sister and everybody else
Elizabeth,
who have gotten their kisses.
I completely objectively disagree. Because those two situations are not equal. If you are giving Ginny all of the credit in the world and blasting Ron, those are two different situations. Hermione has not given Ron any indication that she's interested.
She's gotten angry at him because of his rejections.
Hermione's not given Ron any indication she's interested. Harry hasn't given Ginny any indication he's interested. Mm-hmm. Ginny goes off and dates people who have shown interest in her. Yay, go Ginny! Ron goes to someone who's shown interest in him. Bad Ron!
No, okay.
Like, that's too different.
Here's where I think it's different. Because I agree with you on that. I do agree with you on that. I think the difference is that when Ginny is dating, like, all the people that she dated last year, Harry doesn't care one way or the other. Hermione, though, noticeably has a reaction. She's not coming out and be like, but Ron, I love you. But she is getting angry.
Sure.
And that is a way girls might react.
After the fact. She's getting angry with Ron after the fact.
I'm not saying that it's a good thing on her part. I'm just saying that that's...
blame Ron for that reaction.
No, He's
living his best life.
I'm just saying that this is part of what irritates me about this love triangle nonsense, because it's like, Hermione, you're not communicating your feelings. That's dumb. Ron, you're purposely making out with Lavender in front of Hermione, knowing that she's upset about it, because you see her get upset later on. That's not great either.
That's the difference. That's where we differ, is you're assuming Ron knows why. What gives you any indication he knows Hermione's interested? From his point of view, I'm telling you from a guy's perspective. From a guy's perspective, I'm in a relationship, and this girl over here is just angry with me. What did I do? I never knew you liked me in the first place. You've given me no indication as to such, and now you're just angry at me. I'm like, what is going on here? I'm doing what I thought was the only thing I had. Like, I'm going to the only option I thought I had.
Okay.
Why are you mad at me for doing what?
Because you didn't read my mind. That, like,
that's not on me. That's on you.
That's what I get it. Like, I get that that's not a fair thing, and obviously men are not always as finely in tune with girls' emotions as the girls are. She thinks by the
Give
angry...
credit to Lavender for going after what you wanted.
Yes, no, honestly, but that's why I also feel bad for Lavender, because it's like, is Ron fully in this relationship? No, because he's still looking over at Hermione being like, oh, she's getting angry because I'm making out with Lavender. That's interesting.
And I disagree with that interpretation of Ron. I don't think he's that. I think he's angry with Hermione being like, I just want to hang out with you. Why are you all up in my business and yelling at me? Like, what did I do to deserve that? Nothing. So I think it's not like a flirtation, like, ooh, I'm interested in Hermione still, I'm going to make her jealous. I think it's a confusion of like, what did I do to deserve this? I'm just doing the only thing I could do.
I think it's just very much an illustration of the miscommunications between genders.
Well, sure.
And then the love triangle aspect of it just makes me mad, because I'm like, if you guys would actually talk to one another and be
Sure.
open with your emotions, none of this would be a problem.
But they're two fairly awkward teenagers that don't know how to communicate that part of their lives. Either way, Ron doesn't know and Hermione doesn't know, and this is the result of it, is, like you said, a massive miscommunication.
But I do still think Lavender is also to a degree, maybe not like actively thinking like I'm using him, but I think she enjoys the perks of being with him because it's Harry Potter's best friend. He's the guy who helped him at the Ministry of Magic. Like, he's kind of famous too by degree. He's on the Quidditch team.
Ron. You don't think there's anything attractive about Ron?
I'm not saying that. I just think Lavender thinking like, I can't be with the famous Harry Potter, but I can be with the star of the Quidditch team who won us the cup last year, the one who went to the Ministry of Magic and defended like everything against Voldemort, the one who like is tall, the way Hermione pointed out, or Ron pointed out. Like, I think she enjoys the attention of being able to say like what was it, Juan or whatever. Like, she enjoys the idea of being in a relationship. So I think she gets as much of the like, oh, look at me, as Ron is getting of, oh, I get some kisses finally. Like,
well, there you go. That's what it is. I think it's two kids that enjoy being in a relationship, and they're enjoying that. I don't disagree with you on the Lavender's enjoying the bump up that she's getting from being in
perks,
the proximity of Harry. But at the same time, I think you're being a touch hyperbolic about it. I don't think it's to the degree that you're making it out to be, but tidbits, maybe. Yeah.
Well, I guess the comments will tell us what people think.
I just, wow, you came out with such a Ron. I don't want to call it hate.
I really don't. I don't feel like I'm hating on him as much. I just think that he's being a clueless, how old is he now? Like 16-year-old boy who is like... No,
you said it best. You're punishing him for not reading Hermione's mind and just knowing.
Which isn't
you
fair.
Can't punish him for that.
I get, yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
But I'm just saying, like, he does recognize when Hermione gets mad at him, and he does admit to Harry, he's like, well, if she had feelings for me, then she should have said something. It's not my fault. It's fair, but it also it shows that Ron recognizes Hermione has these feelings.
What's he supposed to do? Just immediately break up with Lavender at that point?
No.
What do you want him to do then?
No, but I just think that's, again, why these stupid love triangles just irritate me, because I'm like, you guys.
Sometimes life gets complicated.
Fair enough.
I mean, and we'll get into it as the Lavender Ron thing develops.
Yeah, I want to hear everyone else's thoughts on this too. Jen, Molly, Julie, tell me what you think.
Yeah. Let us know what you think by commenting on our Twitter and Instagram. You can find us at HogwartsAPod. You can also comment on our Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. There's a comment option. There's also a poll that will be up on the episode. All of our polls are up from every episode that we have. So go back if you haven't voted and vote in those polls.
Yeah, they'll be up for a while.
They'll be up for a minute. And we love finding those results. There's some really interesting, cool results.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else for the spoilers?
No.
Cool. We will end the spoiler section, which was a much more lively spoiler section than I had envisioned.
Whenever boys and girls are talking about boys and girls, especially with romance, you know it's going to get heated.
Well, let us know what you think. But we will be back next week. Elizabeth will be back next week to discuss the next chapter, Silver and Opals.
Yeah.
So
it's a good one.
It'll be a good chapter. We will see you next week. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @HogwartsAPod.